And welcome back to the Michael Cohen Show on our continued journey to 500,000 subscribers. So do me a favor, hit subscribe, watch, comment, and share with family and friends because the nonsense, the chaos, it ain't going to stop, not for a long time. Now, look, if you're wealthy and you're well connected, you can actually skate by in our criminal justice system without accountability. That, my friends, is how Jeffrey Epstein got away with his disgusting acts for so long. On my Mea Culpa podcast, I talked to Jennifer Taub, the author of Big Dirty Money, which is all about how powerful people escape consequences for their actions. And let me be clear, we had a truly revealing conversation, naming names about the elites that our justice system so often protects, and why, in her opinion, Donald Trump, despite all his talk about fighting for the little guy, isn't actually going to do anything about it. Why? Because he's benefited from the status quo. You see, Trump may be trying to cover up the files, but we're here to rip down the curtain. Play the clip. Jen, here's what everybody's afraid to say out loud. Not necessarily me, right? But many. Epstein Files haven't been released because they don't just name names, they name power. Who do you believe is pulling the strings to keep them buried? And what does it tell you about how justice works for the rich and the well-connected?
So, Michael, you know this is my favorite topic because I found, obviously, a link between the lack of enforcement of white-collar criminal statutes against the most powerful, as well as a different kind of implicit immunity for non-economic crimes. We've all seen how the defense of quote unquote influenza has helped young men who have wealthy parents and also helped the really powerful people in this world skate by. And we can think of, I can name some names, Prince Andrew.
This goes to the Culpa. We name names here. We're not shy.
I will name names with the acknowledgement that, you know, when I name names, I'm doing it with the full knowledge and receipts, right? So we've got Prince Andrew, who was credibly accused of, sexually assaulting a child, right? This is the story of Virginia Giuffre, who is no longer with us. She is featured when she is 16 or 17 years old in photographs with Prince Andrew. That case settled, and we don't know the full amount of that settlement, but we know whatever he did was so distasteful that the Queen took away, I believe, his title at some point and kind of exiled him to some degree from the family. So we're talking about this going to the highest corridors and courts of power. Now, we name names. We also know that your former boss, before you joined him, had a very close relationship with Jeff Epstein, that they were purportedly the closest of friends, especially between the time of his divorce from Ivana in, I think, 1992 through around 2004 or 5. And then they had that falling out over a real estate deal. During that time period, Donald Trump is partying with, flying on a plane with, checking out young women and sometimes girls, allegedly with Epstein. I think Donald himself, when it comes to kids, is less the issue. I think that there are other very powerful people who have Donald's ear, whether he is blackmailing them or he just likes to be tight with powerful men and he's trying to keep this under wraps on their behalf, is how I see it. I also, on my show this morning, as you know, I also have a show on YouTube every morning, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday, just called Jen Taub Live. Sorry for that plug.
That's a great
I
plug.
did something
Great
today
show.
called Is Epstein, my title today is Epstein Haunting Donald Trump? And I loved my thumbnail today because I actually think Donald is being haunted by the ghost of Jeff Epstein, and that he's now learning not to speak his name. And that's why he is trying to, every time he thinks of Epstein and how angry he is that Epstein won't die, he starts talking about Obama or Biden or Hillary. But behind all of that, he is, I think, enraged that he can't make this story die. He is haunted by Epstein. I can't figure it out. You know, I have no evidence that Epstein was killed. It seems likely to me that he committed suicide, but he just wasn't watched well. But there's really weird, if you've looked at the interview, if you go back and look at that interview with Jonathan Swan, where he's asked by Swan, why did you wish Maxwell good luck, wish her well? And his immediate answer was, well, her boyfriend or friend either died or was killed in prison. That's his response. So his implication is, now that Ghislaine's in prison, will she die? That's a very weird response. And part of me thinks maybe someone around him made sure that Epstein died. You know, Donald doesn't give orders. So I'm not saying, I believe Epstein committed suicide, but was encouraged to do so. I'm not so dark that I think he was killed, but they certainly did not keep an eye on that man when he was suicidal. And I do think Donald is somehow weirdly haunted by this ghost.
Interesting. So look, the way I see it, the longer that these files stay sealed, the more they serve as like a protective shield. Not a path to justice, a protective shield, again, for the rich and the well-connected.
Sure.
What legal pretexts are actually being used right now to keep these documents under wraps? And are they legit, or is it just a matter of convenience?
So that's a good question, because as you probably know, in the absence of something like a FOIA request, there's no obligation that our government release files from a closed criminal investigation, right? It requires some kind of request. And I believe that there have been FOIA requests from things like the Miami Herald, right? Let's look at the other things. We just saw that the House Oversight Committee has voted to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell to testify. But of course, right when that happened, Todd Blanche, one of Donald Trump's attorneys, has been in communication with Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney to have a quiet, private, one-on-one sit down. Okay, so there is no legal obligation absent responding to a FOIA request or responding to a subpoena. But anything like that is going to be probably washed away, because I wouldn't be surprised if there is a pardon that issues for Ghislaine Maxwell and she is released from prison, and then she doesn't speak. She refuses to respond. And I think she can take the fifth, because arguably there is activity for which she, well, I don't know. I mean, even if she's fully pardoned.
No, you're right. She has an appeal that's out there based upon the 20-year sentence, and that any testimony that she gives at these hearings obviously can be used against her, by the court in making its determination as to whether to reduce the sentence and so on. So
you make a good point.
You
make a better point than me. Michael, you are so much smarter than me on this point. And I'm not just blowing smoke here. They won't want to actually
blowing the smoke. I appreciate it.
I know, but I'm serious. They won't want to issue the pardon right away. They won't want that case to be ongoing. Now, they could, of course, drop the case, right? Because she's asking she's asking for this appeal of her sentence. But if they keep that going, she has this excuse, one, not to testify before Congress, right?
Yeah.
So this could drag out with the tacit understanding that no one's going to kill her in prison. Oops, I mean that she'll get her pardon if she shuts the F up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the bigger question is, I mean, we've seen the names, right? Some of the names that are suspect are people like Leon Black, right? The financier, and
Yep.
Les Wexner, the clothing Victoria's
Well, Les
Secret guy.
Wexner, to me, is hands down one of the most curious aspects of this file, far greater than Trump. And the worst part that I hate this is anytime I say anything that somebody turns and says, "Well, now you're defending Trump. You're taking the knee. What are they threatening your family? Why are you kissing the ring?" I understand this case. I understand Donald Trump. Les Wexner, to me, is the most curious individual in this case. You're probably squinting right now and saying, "Well,
I'm excited to hear your revelation.
saying, why would you say that, Michael? Enlighten me." Well, Jen, that's what I plan on doing here. Right?
Enlighten me.
I'm
That
gonna
word
enlighten
wasn't
you.
there, but thank you.
So, the townhouse that Jeffrey Epstein was residing in here in New York City has a value to it today of over $80 million. When he moved into it, it was somewhere in the ballpark of 60 million plus. It's a massive townhouse on the Upper East Side between Madison Avenue and Fifth Avenue in the most expensive blocks that exist. That house was given to him by Les Wexner for $1. For $1. Exactly. And I'm like wondering how, why. I'm a nice guy. Nobody ever gave me shit. Not for $1, not for $100.
I
They're
sent
talking
you
about
golf
60.
balls from my old university.
Oh yeah, by the way, nothing for nothing. I lost them in the first hole when I was playing like a couple of years back. I lost all three.
That's fine. When you speak next year to my new school, I will send you something. But anyhow, go ahead. Oh, you're right. A dollar?
Yeah,
$1.
It's like for $1, and we're talking about a $60 million townhouse in the most prestigious area, massive townhouse. A lot of reports say, "Oh, it's the largest townhouse in New York City." No, it's not. No, it's not. But
So what's
let me be very
interesting is
clear,
because
it's
he's
huge and
dead.
nice.
Although he didn't have children or a spouse, I wonder if his estate gets a stepped up basis on that and don't have to pay capital gains on the I don't know. Well, I don't care. Anyway,
Yeah,
the
right.
point
I
is
mean,
Les
all that
Wexner.
money. By the way, one last point that I want you then to
Yeah.
respond to. When Jeffrey Epstein died, his estate was valued at over $600 million. That's a shit ton of money. All right. Where nobody
For a
can
math
explain.
teacher?
Right. For a guy who didn't even have a teaching degree, who, by the way, whose boss, the guy who hired him, happens to be the father of Bill Barr, right? I mean, please understand that none of this makes any sense at
None.
all. How does somebody accumulate that sort of wealth and yet nobody actually knows what he even did for a living? Hey everyone. First of all, thanks for watching. I mean, we're going to be posting daily episodes with reactions and talking about politics. We'll be talking about everything, in fact. So please like and subscribe. Join us on this journey.